Hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar. I'm going to be talking to you today all about our Master's Pre-Registration Occupational Therapy programme that we run at Brunel University. And this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what occupational therapy is. I'm going to talk a little bit about where occupational therapists work, and then I'm going to move on to about studying at Brunel University, some information about our programme and how to apply to our programme, and then how to get some further information. If you have any questions, as you heard earlier, please do write into us and we'll endeavour to respond to them. So, you've obviously logged in because you wanted to find out about occupational therapy. Let me tell you a little bit about occupational therapy. This is a profession that has been around for many years and is primarily aimed at helping individuals recover and overcome barriers that prevent them from doing everyday activities that they wish to do. Now that might be due to the fact they have a physical disability, a mental health disability, or maybe they find themselves in a circumstance where they're unable to do what they wish to do. For example, somebody maybe who is homeless, or maybe a refugee entering a new country. When we talk about occupational therapy and occupations, we're talking about activities, practical, purposeful activities, the kind of things that we like to do on an everyday basis. So for example, being able to wash yourself, dress yourself, engage in your work activities, or the hobbies and activities that you like to do in your leisure time. So occupational therapy is hugely client-centred. We might be working with somebody who has this disability or finds themselves in a difficult situation, but we're also working with those around them. So that might be families and parents or teachers, for example. We also work with industries and talk about how they can maintain the health and well-being with their employers through occupation. So occupational therapy is about being able to engage in the occupations that you want to do or need to do or expected to do. And we may do that by teaching you new techniques, or it might be about modifying the activity or the environment in order for you to be able to do this. So, how can occupational therapists help people? As I mentioned earlier, occupational therapists work with people with physical, mental health, and other kinds of disabilities, doing the things that they want to do. To be a good occupational therapist, you have to be pretty good at problem solving. Wanting to help people is also very important, but ultimately you are helping that person to help themselves. In order to do this, you have to be very patient and very practical, and you often have to come up with very creative ways of actually getting around problems. Alongside that, we work in multidisciplinary teams, so we also have to be very good at communicating what we want to do or what our clients might want to do. So we might also be working as an advocate for them. We want people to optimise their quality of life, so it's looking at what people want to do and trying to think of ways of achieving that. It's a difficult job. You have to be very strong both emotionally and physically in order to do this. You'll be confronted with difficult situations and people in very distressed states. So you need to be able to listen to what they say and also to be able to cope with what they want to do. The course is pretty intensive as well. It's hard work, it's 5 days a week, and it's nearly 9 till 5. So it's a very intensive course, 2-year course. And the reason it's like this is because we're teaching you to become professionals. And that takes a lot of time and energy on your behalf as well. So if you want more information about what occupational therapists do and how we help people, you can click into various YouTube clips that are available online, and we've given you a link at the bottom of this slide. The other place to get more YouTube videos is from the Royal College of Occupational Therapists, where you can see occupational therapists working with different clients in different conditions. So, where do occupational therapists work? Well, the most obvious place is within hospitals, but that isn't the only place. Occupational therapists may work in hospitals, acute settings, as well as rehabilitation settings, but it also might be within social situations, so working in the community in social services. Occupational therapists also work in private practice, so you may become an expert, for example, working with neurology and work in a private clinic working with patients who have neurological conditions. You can also be a researcher. Many occupational therapists are very interested in looking at interventions that have an evidence base to help people achieve independence. So being a researcher might also lead you to being an educator like myself, teaching the new groups of occupational therapists coming through. Occupational therapists also make very good managers because we're very used to looking at people's strengths and working with teams. More interesting places that you can work, or expanding areas that you can work in, are charities and other societies outside hospital settings. So, for example, working with the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, looking at ergonomics, or working with fire and rescue services, looking at how you can maintain healthy lifestyles with people who've been laid off sick. So there's many different areas you can work in. So what about our programme? Well, it is a 2-year master's degree, and you will be coming in with a previous degree. So how does this differ from your previous degree? It will be very, very different. The learning outcomes from this programme are make you eligible to register with the Health and Care Professions Council. Also, this gives you the title to be an occupational therapist and have the licence to practice as an occupational therapist. This programme is also accredited against the Royal College of Occupational Therapists professional standards, so there's those standards that we have to adhere to, as well as those that are dictated to us by the Brunel University. Our programme is also unique, and we're the only programme in the United Kingdom which is accredited by the American College of Occupational Therapists, and they are involved in accrediting occupational therapy training in America. If you complete our programme, it means that you will be accredited by the American Council of Occupational Therapy Education, which will allow you to apply to work in the United States. So, what happens after you graduate from Brunel University? Well, our studies of previous students have shown that 6 months after graduating, 95% of our students are in work or are studying for further qualifications. So that's quite an achievement. It's a profession that has plenty of opportunities for employment. The expected starting salary in the UK for an occupational therapist is between £21,388 to £27,901, or depending on the areas that you choose to work and also the level that you go in at. The thing about this profession is there's opportunities for progression, and within clinical areas your salary can rise to £40,558 with further experience. If you move into management or become a consultant occupational therapist, there is potential to move up to £63,000 and above. Educational roles also mimic those kinds of salary scales. So, let me give you some tips about your application. If you want to apply to us, it's worthwhile doing some groundwork before you start. So make sure you read and research about occupational therapy. Be clear about what it is, what the different roles are, and the different areas that you might work in, because this is a question that we will ask you. If you can possibly do it, arrange some work experience. We know that's difficult, so if you can't get work experience working directly with an occupational therapist, see if you can get work experience working with different client groups, so that you at least have an understanding of the kind of challenges that some of our people that we work with may experience. That might be working in a care home, or maybe working as a volunteer with one of the charities. Try and cultivate interpersonal skills, and that might also come through your voluntary work. The ability to be able to communicate with people on many different levels is a useful experience, and is something that will stand you in good stead when you start on your clinical experiences. Once we've read your application, if it looks as though you would be suitable, then we will invite you for interview. So a few interview tips. As I said before, a broad understanding of the profession is vital. Having a really good understanding of the different areas that occupational therapists work in and the kind of things they might do shows us that you're committed to the programme, and it also means that you're more likely to succeed. It's useful if you've got a good understanding of international perspectives of healthcare models as well. Whilst on this programme, you will learn about the National Health Service in the UK, but we also teach you about the different healthcare models that you may see within the American care system, as we do take students from America. We said that we would like you to observe some professions at work. If you can get to see occupational therapists, that's good. And we will ask you about those experiences, what you saw and what did you think of that work. If you didn't manage to see occupational therapists actually in practice, then try and watch the videos and possibly talk to some occupational therapists about their work. When you come to us in your interview, talk about your work experiences that you've had on your personal statement. Tell us about how you've developed empathy, how you've developed teamwork skills, how you've developed leadership skills. Give us examples of these kind of things, because this helps us understand whether you'd be suitable as an occupational therapy student. And as I mentioned earlier, make sure you research well. The Royal College of Occupational Therapists is a very valuable source for finding out about the profession and the different areas that occupational therapists work in. But also read our Brunel University websites. We have very good links to our Master's Pre-Reg programme, which will tell you a lot about our programmes and what you'll expect to study while you're here. Now, it could be that you might want to try and look at scholarships, and you will certainly need to think about funding. At the moment, the cost for our full-time Master's programme is £9,750 a year. And in order to get some funding for this, you would need to go through the Student Loan Authority. Please see the web link that we've attached on this slide for how to get more information. If you're an overseas student, then the entries are £18,000 per year. For our overseas students, we do offer Dean's Occupational Therapy scholarships, and those are available via the web link that we have below. Please do apply for these. We have a number of these, and there is no limit to the number of students who can apply. There are additional costs with our courses because they are professionally related courses. So we've also included a link so you can find out about the additional costs that you may have to pay in order to take this course. Some examples of those additional costs are, for example, immunisation fees. If you're missing any of the immunisation requirements, then you would need to cover those. Another example would be the disclosure and barring screening that we have to undertake. There are a few additional costs in terms of relating to clinical placements and travelling to clinical placements, and accommodation costs if your clinical placement is too far for you to travel from. We also highly recommend that you would join the Royal College of Occupational Therapists, and at the moment the fee for that is £60 a year. This is a valuable resource as you get access to the Royal College of Occupational Therapists Occupational Therapy Journal, but also many other resources as well. Please see the web links for further details. So where are we? Brunel University is situated on the edge of London, and as you can see from this map, we're very close to Heathrow Airport. So for those of you who are coming in from overseas, it's easy to get to and easy to be able to catch planes home again if you wish. We're also very close to the M25, which obviously has major links both to the north and the south of England, so very accessible for our UK-based students too. The university is actually quite compact, as you can see from this picture, and It includes various different study blocks for the different courses that are run here, as well as the residential blocks for students. The area which is dedicated to our particular course is illustrated here by the red arrow. And this building has been purpose-built for allied healthcare professional students. So we have very modern facilities to help with your training. So why study at Brunel University? Well, we are rated the top in London for the MSc Pre-Reg Occupational Therapy programme by the NHS, so that's one good reason. I've also mentioned that we have purpose-built rooms which mimic the clinical environment. So we have specialist kitchens, we have arts room, we have a gymnasium. We also have access to different learning resources for learning your anatomy and physiology, and also different pieces of equipment for learning very specific skills, for example, using sensory integration. So we are well resourced. We have a very well-resourced library here, and we are a very big department within the university, so we have a very large presence. For our American students, it's exciting to know that in August 2017, our program was given accreditation status by the American Occupational Therapy Association. This is a very important move, and it also means that the students who attend our program come from many different countries. Currently, on our BSc and our Master's program together, we have students from America, the UK, Europe, particularly Sweden and Norway, Singapore and Hong Kong. So you will be working within a very multicultural environment. For our American students, if you want more information about our accreditation, you can follow the link below to find out about our accreditation with the American OT Association. So let me tell you a little bit more about the course, because I'm sure you want to know what you'll be doing if you join us. It is a 2-year course and it is full-time, so there's not a lot of holiday. We have been validated to run for 5 years, and our revalidation started in 2014. This means every 5 years we review what we're teaching in the programme to make sure it is current and it reflects contemporary practice. We take approximately 60 students each year from both the home, EU and also internationally funded students. And our programme is validated by the Health and Care Professions Council for 75 students. So we have some flexibility on the numbers that we can take. The programme, as I mentioned, is very intensive. So this slide gives you an understanding of what your 2-year programme looks like. If you look at the top part of the slide, you'll see the first year. So year 1 is about teaching you to be a skilled practitioner, the how, the what and the why of occupational therapy. You will see that you have 3 vacation periods, but these are relatively short, approximately 2 weeks each. So you're only usually getting between 6 and 8 weeks annual leave a year. You start the programme at the end of September, beginning of October, with a Freshers' Week where you get to meet all the other students in the university and get to find out about some of the societies that they run here. Then it's straight into modules. All the modules are illustrated here in green. To give you an example of the kind of things that you'll be studying, the informing sciences are where you will learn all about your anatomy and physiology and the way the human body works. Subjects such as knowledge and skills for occupational therapists will teach you about the assessment and some basic treatment skills that you will need, particularly when you go out on your first-year placements. We also have modules which are preparing you for the workplace, and within that you will learn about the structure of healthcare systems and also about the ethics that occupational therapists work within. You'll also notice that we have some yellow blocks, and this is where you're starting to learn about research. So right from day 1, you're going to be thinking about the research that you will be completing at the end of the Masters. There are 2 blue placement blocks that fall within the first year, so practice placement A and practice placement B. Practice Placement A is fairly short at only 4 weeks, but this is a welcome opportunity for you to get out onto a clinical practice and actually have a go at being an occupational therapist. You will be well supported by your clinical educator, and you won't be expected to be taking a caseload at this point. But you certainly will be communicating with patients and starting to look at some of the assessments and treatment plans that occupational therapists use. By the time you get to Practice Placement B, you'll be taking on some clients of your own, doing some very basic assessments and possibly very basic treatment programs under the very close supervision of your educator. So you will be well supported. As you can see, there is another placement that is tagged on the end of year one, and this is Practice Placement C. This officially falls within the second year, because as you can see, it moves on to the line below. In year 2, we're focusing more on the mastery of occupational therapy. So this is where we start to move you up to more master level studies. So within this particular area of work, you start with Practice Placement C, and again, this is where you're further developing your skills as an occupational therapist under the support of your fieldwork placement educator. The modules that you will study in the second year involve people and communities, so this is looking at social and physical environments and also public health and how occupational therapists can use this to enable people. Preparation for Workplace 2, for example, includes more for risk assessment, communication skills, and also multidisciplinary working. Whereas the art and science of occupational therapy looks much more at frames of references and models that occupational therapists use. Again, through the whole of the second year, you'll be working on your dissertation. You will have chosen a topic, and you'll be working with a supervisor to collect data to produce your final dissertation. Your final placement is Practice Placement D, right at the end of the programme. And this is where you will be working almost as an independent occupational therapist, just in preparation to leap into your professional life once you've actually graduated. We assess you as you go through your programmes, as you would well imagine. And during this time, we use different types of assessments to help you. So we have written assignments, so you learn to write reports and also how to write critical pieces of work and academic pieces of work. There are a few exams, so there will be some memorising going on, and obviously there is your dissertation at the end of the third year. There are quite a few practical assessments because occupational therapy is a practical profession. So you will be doing practical assessments before you go out. You are also assessed while you're on clinical placement by your clinical placement educators. They will give you feedback on how you're doing as a student occupational therapist and help you set goals to achieve your best. Throughout the whole of your 2 years, you will be involved in writing critically reflective portfolios to help develop your skills as a reflective practitioner. And the final type of assessment that we very often use is the oral and interactive post-presentation, where you'll present to one of either your peers or to other members of staff various areas of your interest and answer questions on this. Our practice placements occur in many different areas, but you will be on a trajectory as you go through your placements. We will ensure that you have sufficient experience in acute situations, rehabilitation and community settings, but also mental health. Examples of where this might happen might be within the National Health Service, like hospitals, or it might be within social or community settings. We have placements within special education, but also mainstream schools. It may be within the private sector, for example, in nursing homes. It could be within the voluntary sector. For example, we have placements with Help for Heroes, one of the charities, or it might be within a situation, for example, in prisons or within societies who support homeless individuals. So many different situations that you might experience a placement opportunity. Although this is all very much about occupational therapy, The College of Health and Life Sciences does teach other healthcare professionals too, including physiotherapists, physicians associates, social workers and postgraduate community nurses. This means that you have the opportunity to both learn with these other professions and also socialise with them. This very much reflects the kind of experience you'll have once you've actually graduated working in a multidisciplinary team. So let me tell you a little bit about the staff. Well, the OT division at this particular university is extremely skilled. As you can see here, many of our staff have written textbooks which are used by our profession. But also we have members of our team who are working at the Royal College of Occupational Therapists, helping to inform and develop our profession. But we also have other members of staff who work with industry in consultancy roles, and also members of staff who still work clinically, maintaining their clinical skills. So we have a broad range of experience to help you develop to be an expert occupational therapist. For you, student life at Brunel will be very exciting, and there's certainly a lot going on. There are a whole wealth of different societies that are run by the Students' Union here, so you'll be able to engage in different activities that maybe reflect the kind of things you're interested in. But we also have the Brunel Occupational Therapy Society, which is a group both aiming to develop awareness of what occupational therapists are and also to engage in some social activities. It's the Brunel Occupational Therapy Society that also runs our student conference at the end of the second year and invites clinicians in to hear about the kind of work that the various students have been undertaking. Being a student here, you'll have access to student accommodation, which is available on site, as seen in that earlier slide, and certainly there is a lot of activity that goes on in supporting students on campus. There is an on-site nightclub and various shops and different student resources available. So, to apply for this course, there are obviously certain entry criteria we need to think about. At the time of your application, you must have completed a UK First or 2-1 honours degree or an equivalent internationally recognised qualification in a relevant discipline. We're looking for strong applicants who can demonstrate a scientific profile. So we're looking for the kind of qualifications that might be relevant to occupational therapists. And we're also looking for those who have an insight into the profession of occupational therapy. We will consider applicants who've got a 2-2 honours degree as well, but we would be looking for subjects that are relevant to occupational therapy, such as biology, psychology, human sciences and sociology, as this will help give you a head start in our programme. We'd also expect these students to have an extensive experience of working in a health and social care setting relevant to occupational therapy. One other thing is that we require to see academic evidence over the last 5 years so that we can be confident that you'll be able to cope with our fairly intensive programme. We do have some application deadlines. We have a rolling application for all applicants, and we do have a deadline which is currently at July 2018. However, please do put in an application even if you're past that date, because we do run a waiting list and people do occasionally drop out. So there's always a chance you may be able to get in after that. Once you've applied, then we start to carry out our interviews. So we're looking forward to seeing your application and hopefully inviting you to an interview soon. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, what is the interview? So if you are invited to a selection day, you'll start by meeting me. I'll give you an introductory talk all about the MSc programme, very similar to the kind of information I've given you today, but giving you some more details. You'll also have the opportunity to tour the facilities and the campus, and you do that with our student ambassadors. And that is a brilliant time for you to be able to actually ask them the lowdown about what it's like to be a student at this university. We then ask you to engage in a group activity with your peers. And it's our student ambassadors who help us decide whether you have those kind of communication skills that will make you a good occupational therapy student. You're also required to undertake a written test. Excuse me. You're also required to undertake a written test so that we can see whether you have the academic capability to write at this level. And you will also have a one-to-one interview with one of our lecturers here. And during that time, we'll explore your application and ask you questions about your experience and your understanding of occupational therapy. If you are successful after this, then you'll be offered a place on our programme, possibly with provisions depending on what you're applying with, and then we look forward to seeing you in the following September. So if you require more information, I have put some links up here for you to look at. There's one all about the accommodation that you can get at Brunel University. There's also a link about how occupational therapy can help people. So again, to help you understand what occupational therapy is about. And there's a good YouTube link about occupational therapy as a career and all about the student journey. In conclusion, thank you for listening to our webinar. I hope you found it useful. Please do come and visit us at our next postgraduate open evening on the 23rd of May, which is happening between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. And certainly we can answer more questions. And it's a good opportunity for you to see us and see what resources we have available. Please do go onto the Brunel University website and find out further information. Further information about our MSc pre-registration occupational therapy programme is also available. And follow us on Facebook, Brunel Occupational Therapy, and via Twitter at @Brunel, where our students often tweet about the activities that they're engaging with, just to give you a real feel about what this will be about. And finally, we'd be really interested to find out how you found our webinar. Was it useful? Did it answer your questions? And we're also interested about where you've come from. Are you an international student? Are you a mature student? Or are you just searching out new information? Whatever that might be, please do let us know. So thank you for listening, and we'll be looking for some questions now if anybody has any.
Thank you, Dr. Collier, for that very insightful presentation. So yes, I will start taking some questions. If you do have any, please do type them into the question box. Just before we proceed, just a couple of quick points worth making is you can book your place on our PG Open Evening by visiting our website. And also, we're glad you turned up today for the webinar. If you can also, in the question box, let us know how you found out about the webinar. That would be quite useful information for us at this end. But without further ado, let's take the first couple of questions that are coming in. So we have a question here from Michaela, and she's asking, what do students love most about attending Brunel University London?
That's a very interesting question, that one. When I've spoken to students about what they enjoy about Brunel University London, it is very much about the international diversity of the campus. Not just the occupational therapy programme, but all the other students who are attending all the different programmes. So there's a very much multicultural feel here. They also like the fact that we're pretty central for being able to get into London and also to get out and visit various parts of the UK. So it's very useful for socialising, meeting friends and getting to and from family.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from Donatus, who asked, I want to know if it's possible to get a course outlined beforehand to assist my preparation.
Yes, certainly. If you go on to the link I gave you for the MSc Occupational Pre-Registration Programme, which was on my last slide, you will see there is a link to the course structure. It's called the Programme Specification, and that will give you lots of information about how the programme is structured, what you'll be studying, information about your placements, and also information about the modules.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. Now we have multiple questions here from May, so I'll just read out the questions and then Dr. Collier will answer them. First of all, what kind of assessments are given? Are they just exams or are these papers and projects? Are there final exams? Are the final exams the only ones that matter, or are each exams throughout each year matter, I assume? And finally for May, is the license applicable to the US? So a number of questions there.
Okay, so there are a number of different ways that we will assess you throughout your programme. As a rule, during the first year, you will have written assignments, so that's developing your writing skills, and written reports. But you will also do practical assessments. So for example, you might be assessed about using a piece of equipment. We also ask you to do project work, so you'll be working in teams to answer questions, and that project work might involve writing a report, giving a presentation, and also doing a reflective piece as a group. So you'll work together as a team with your fellow students. The other thing that you might do is actually carry out what we call reflective portfolios. So looking at the work you're doing on clinical placement and writing reflection pieces about what you've learned from this. So there's many different ways that you will be assessed while you're on this programme. There isn't actually an end exam. Each module has to be passed in order to be able to progress onto the programme. So you will do a module or a number of modules, and then you would have an assessment which might cover one or more of those modules. Then you would need to pass that module in order to progress on to the next group of modules. And certainly you have to complete the first year before you can progress on to year 2. So there was another question you asked, which was about licensing, was it?
Is the license applicable in the USA?
Right. Because our programme is accredited by the American College of Occupational Therapists, it does mean that you are then eligible to sit the licensing exam in the States. We do offer help with that, and there will be various tutorials, and there is a particular textbook that we use which helps prepare you for your licensing exams in the States. So we are completely able to support you in actually preparing for your license exam once you return to the States.
Thank you. Another question from Michaela. How big are the class sizes?
Currently, we have 60 students in each year of our programme. Now, if we're running a lecture, then we would probably have 60 students in the lecture room. However, if we're doing practical work or some kind of practical application skill, then we would probably be breaking you into smaller groups so that we can ensure that we can teach you successfully. So you may be working in groups of 20 in that particular example. So it all depends on what we're trying to teach you.
Thank you. We have a question now from Layla. Layla currently has a DBS, which of course stands for the Disclosure Barring Service. Will that be accepted, or will the university require her to complete a new one?
The really frustrating thing about a DBS is it's only current at the time that you apply for it. Therefore, we have to ask all our students to apply for a fresh DBS before they start the programme. If you were to have a DBS and that was gained sometime in the past, and then you come on your programme and then an incident happens whereby that you developed a clinical you had a criminal record, then that would impact on your ability to go on placements. So we do have to ask our students to apply for a DBS at the beginning of their course.
Thank you. Another question from Layla. I'm aware that the deadline for applications is July. Would I be notified if I've been successful before that date, or would everyone find out after the deadline?
This is slightly flexible. It all depends on the number of applications that are actually coming in at us. So if we're getting a lot of applications coming at us, that slows up the speed at which we can actually respond to you. As a rule, once we've made the interviews and we've made some decisions, then we would be contacting you and actually telling you whether we would be able to offer you a place, and hoping that you would be responding to us to say that you would accept. The only deadline that we have on July is obviously that the earlier that we have the applications, the easier it is for us to be able to prepare you before you start.
Thank you. A question now from Alexandra. Would it be possible to talk with a current student from America about how they like the program compared to American programs?
We don't actually have access to students once they've actually left our program, unless they give us our information. But our admissions tutor on our master's program is an American occupational therapist, and she has experience both of working in the United States as well as the Brunel program. So what I would suggest you do is you contact our admissions team at Brunel University and ask to speak to the admissions tutor for the pre-reg master's program, and she'll be able to give you some information about how the programs differ and what the students' experiences are.
Thank you very much. Well, in the topic of America, we've got another similar question. If I attend school in the United States and our year ends in May, do I have to wait until then to apply to the program that starts in September? That's from Kiana.
What I would suggest you do is you do put in your application now, even though your course ends in May. We would have to wait until we see what your results are. So we wouldn't be able to offer you a place until we've got your results. But certainly do make an application to us as soon as you wish.
Thank you. Another question from Michaela. Are most students from the UK, or is there a lot of diversity from other countries?
Currently, in our first year of our Master's Pre-Reg programme, we have an equal balance of about 50-50 UK-based students and American students, so a really even mix.
Thank you. The next question, which is from May. What is the content of the written test during the interview, and how can you best prepare yourself for that?
We do change the theme for the written test. Unfortunately, we're not able to divulge what the content is to you before you turn up for the interview, because we're asking all students to hear what the topic is and then go away and write about it. So unfortunately, I can't tell you what that is. Sorry.
No problem. Next one is from Elizabeth. When should we expect even to receive an email or packet with more information about sending our medical records, health information, and what I assume is DBS check?
I'm assuming that you have been for an interview and you have accepted a place, and you're waiting to hear a place at this point. Unfortunately, I don't actually have the timelines available because this part of the process is carried out by our admin team, and I don't have that information available with me at this moment in time. However, I do suggest that you drop our admissions team an email and ask them, and they should be able to give you some clarification of the timelines.
Thank you. And just to confirm, the email address for our admissions team is admissions@brunel.ac.uk. That email address again is admissions@brunel.ac.uk. We have another question here from Elizabeth. How will Brunel prepare its students for working in the US, since this will be the second group of students going through the pre-reg program since it was accredited?
So as I mentioned, we do have a member of staff here who is actually an American occupational therapist, so she is involved in the program. And alongside that, we also have very close links with Crichton University, which is in Nebraska, and we are developing other links with a number of other American universities who have master's programs. The Crichton University runs an online program for us, which helps us with the policies and the healthcare systems in the States. And that would be an online program we expect all our students to undertake and pass. And we also have staff from that particular university who help support our students, particularly our American students, in understanding what they will need to do when they actually get back to the States. Additionally to this, we have also had a number of students who've done their final placement back in the United States working with a clinical supervisor there.
Thank you. We have another question here from Michaela. Is Brunel University easy to get to with public transportation, or would a student need a car?
As I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, we're very well placed on the edge of London. So there's great accessibility in terms of Heathrow Airport. We have a very good bus system which can get you to and from Heathrow Airport. Also at Heathrow Airport there are various coaches that travel up and down the country. We're also only a mile away from Uxbridge, where we have the underground, so that would then give you access to the whole of central London. So we really are accessible to anywhere in the world.
Okay, and our next question is from Kiara. In regards to placements, how likely is it to get a placement outside of the London area? Is it typical for more students to be able to commute to their placement without having to move?
The majority of students have their placements within the London area, Uxbridge, Brunel University area. So most students are able to commute to their placements. There are one or two exceptions, but usually that's where a student has requested to go to a placement that is out of area. So for example, I mentioned Help for Heroes, the charity, and they offer placements for students, but that's on Salisbury Plain. But a student who was interested in that type of placement would be applying for that kind of placement and perhaps would have considered how they were going to be getting there.
Our next question is from Linnea. When do you start accepting applications for 2019?
We are happy to accept applications as soon as you want. So just make it clear on your application form that that's the year you're actually applying for. We are still taking applications for 2018. So that's obviously an opportunity for you.
Thank you. This is from April. I'm an international student that completed the International Baccalaureate program in high school and received a diploma. Will that help my chances of getting into the 2-year graduate program?
Again, if you go onto our MSc Occupational Therapy pre-registration web link that I gave you on the last page, you can click on the tab relating to different qualifications. On here, you can click on the country that you're from, and it will tell you the type of qualifications that we accept, because obviously there's many different qualifications for different places in around the world. If you have any queries after reading this information, please do contact our admissions team and ask for further clarification.
We have a question from Alexandra. I was wondering if you have any specific prerequisite courses to gain admission into the university, for example, anatomy, biology, or do you just require a degree and experience like you mentioned in the presentation?
We don't actually run any courses to prepare you for this. Some of our students have actually found that doing online courses, particularly around anatomy, because for some students that can be a bit of a shock, suddenly having to learn all the muscles of the body. But we don't actually run anything here. As I mentioned, it is helpful if you can try and up those skills. The only entry requirements we have are those that we stated.
Thank you. Another question from Layla. The location of the university is perfect for covering a range of areas for placements. Is there a radius the placements will cover?
That will all depend on which hospital you actually are at. Most of the London hospitals obviously have a smallish catchment area, but if you are on a placement that is in a more rural location, that will be a wider catchment area.
Thank you. Our next question is from Sophie. Is there a deadline to apply for on-campus accommodation for the postgraduate occupational therapy course? I do know there is a deadline for guaranteed accommodation, but this is primarily for undergraduate students. I would recommend, and we'll again give these contact details out at the end of this presentation. If you have not applied for a course yet and you'd like to find this out, to email Course Inquiries Department, and their email address is course-inquiries@brunel.ac.uk. That email address again is course-inquiries@brunel.ac.uk, and that's the email to use if you haven't applied. If you have applied for the course, you should email our admissions department, which is admissions@brunel.ac.uk. That email address again is admissions@brunel.ac.uk.
You can also get further information from www.brunel.ac.uk/accommodation.
Thank you. Now, our next question is from Mary Grace. She's from Alabama, USA. If I'm interested in applying for your program starting in the fall of 2019, should I apply before July 15, 2018, or wait till after the 2018 academic program begins?
I would probably suggest you wait until after July, just because we are dealing with our 2018 applicants at this moment in time. But once that deadline's gone, please do feel free to apply.
Our next question is from Mataya. How easy is it to change between the specialisms as an OT? For example, from mental health to orthopedics, would it require further training to switch between sectors?
This is an interesting one. When I graduated, I was one of these occupational therapists who couldn't quite decide what she wanted to do. So I spent most of the first 3 years of my clinical career moving between physical and then mental health and then back again because I couldn't decide. So yes, it's very easy to move between the clinical areas. As you become higher and more experienced, then most therapists will start to specialise in one particular area, but there's a great deal of flexibility in moving to different clinical areas.
Excellent. Very interesting question here from Alana, who's an international student. So she's asking if we could talk a bit more, if Dr. Collier could talk a bit more about the student experience, maybe how many students are generally accepted, how they find keeping up with the coursework, and how the interview process works. But my personal favourite is, would they need to fly in for the interview?
Well, it would be lovely if we could go and visit all our international students, but sadly we can't. So if you're an international student, then we will carry out the interview process, the application process with you via Skype. So our admissions team would actually identify that you're not based in the UK, and we would carry out the one-to-one interview by Skype. We'd ask you to do the written piece of work. So I would give you the information of what to write about, then you would have half an hour to go away and write about it. The only thing you wouldn't do as an international student is the discussion group, because obviously you haven't got anybody else around you. So for those of you who are overseas, you do get a slightly modified interview process, but you still get one, and you don't have to fly in to see us. So a little bit about the student experience. Most students find the course very exciting. They do say that they find it a very intensive course, and once they start, they sort of hit the ground running, but they also find it immensely rewarding. Because we have different ways of assessing our students, the students quite like that, because they say that they might be good at one type of assessment, or they might not be so good at another type of assessment. So for example, some students find unseen exams difficult. But that just means, because we've got different types of assessment, that you may not do well on one particular assessment, but there's a different assessment style that's coming up. So you're not always assessed the same way, which is very helpful.
Thank you. We have another question from Kiara. What sort of resources or assistance will be available to help students prepare for the NCOT exam, which is NBCOT?
We have been working very closely with the NBCOT, and we will be running we will be having a tutor coming from NBCOT to help our students. This is an additional cost to your program. You also will have, as part of that cost, you will have the textbook, which covers all the different areas that you will be assessed on for this exam, and opportunities for practice questions in order to take the exam. You then have a choice. You can either take the exam in the UK, there is a centre in London where you can undertake the exam, or you could go back to the States to take your exam there if you prefer.
Thank you. Next question is from Suzette. Many OT schools in the US require the GRE entrance exam. Would this also be required to apply for Brunel?
No, we don't use the GRE entrance exam, so just the degree and the application system that we mentioned earlier.
Question here from Vitaya. What's the difference between an OT and an occupational health advisor? Are they similar, or does the advisor need to be a nurse?
As a rule, an occupational health nurse is somebody who's been through a 3-year degree nurse training program and then has decided to specialise in occupational health. Occupational health tends to be more about how your work might affect actually your health status. So for example, if you were working in an area where there may be high risk substances, they would be looking at those kind of things, or they may even look at things such as ergonomics. This is slightly different to occupational therapy. Occupational therapy is much more interested in both the physical and the mental health and the social situations that individuals find themselves in. So an example would be that if you were in the workplace and you were struggling, then an occupational therapist may come in and not only look at the activity, but also break the activity down to work out which part of the activity was causing the problem, and then look at how to adapt that activity in order to enable that individual to carry on doing the task.
Thank you. A question here from Leila. Will students be required to have a car for placements?
Students aren't required to have cars for placements. This is always a difficult one because we are moving into much more community-based work. But as a rule, if you're on a community placement, you will either be travelling with your supervisor in their own vehicle, or if you're in the centre of London, it's likely that you'll be travelling via public transport.
Thank you. Very interesting question here from Sydney. How feasible is student success when coming into the program as an international student?
We have a very good success rate with our program, and we are very supportive of our international students. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 50% American students currently on our first year program. So there is a very strong support for students who are coming in from overseas and perhaps looking at going back to work in different healthcare situations. As I also mentioned, the university is very multicultural as well, so there's lots of opportunities to mix with students from many different countries. We also have a lot of support systems and student services who are very sensitive to the different needs of students coming from different countries.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. I'll actually add a little bit on that in regards to the vibrant international community we have here at the university. One of the things that Brunel has is actually a range of societies that people can join. They can join societies based on the subjects you're interested in, so there's many subject-specific societies, but there's also societies based on particular interests you have, like film, dance, etc. But we also have cultural societies too, so many international students do like to form their little societies and engage with people from their own countries. And if you don't have a society here that meets a particular group culture you want to join, you are also able to create your own society. So we do have a lot of good sort of social bonding societies here at Brunel University. So just go back then into occupational therapy course questions. We have one here from Ella. What qualifications are accepted? I hold a BA in childhood studies at the time of applying and wondered if that would be acceptable.
We already have students who've actually applied with childhood studies and they're doing very well on our programme. So certainly that would be a degree that we would accept. As I mentioned in the qualifications section, if you have a 2-1 in your first degree, then there's a lot more flexibility in the type of subject area that you could apply with. If you're applying with a 2-2, then we really would prefer somebody who is already has a degree in a subject that is very akin to occupational therapy. So that might be biology, sociology, human biology, psychology. We are looking for people who have an affinity with the profession and understanding the profession. That's the key thing we're looking for.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Donatus. Just follow up on my previous question regarding DBS, which again is the Disclosure Barring Service. When are we going to start the DBS application? Right, so I'll leave that to you. Should you know that?
Right, so when you're going to start the DBS application, once you've actually applied for the programme, then you should have information set out to you with information about how to apply. Again, it will be the admissions team who will be able to help you with this question, as I'm not entirely sure when the process starts.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. We still have a number of questions to go. But just before we go on to them, I'd like to just kindly ask you again if you could quickly just let us know by typing into the question box how you found out about today's webinar. We'd greatly appreciate it at this end. A few of you have already done this, so thank you for that. But if you do have a few seconds and you could let us know how you found out about today's webinar, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, so on to our next question, which is from Jennifer. I just filled out an application form for the course yesterday. Am I too late to be considered for this course this September?
Oh, Jennifer, well done. No, of course you're not. We look forward to seeing your application.
Excellent. We have a question now from Suzette. Many LT schools in the US require the GRE entrance exam. Did we do this one already? Would it also be required for Brunel? I think that's something similar, didn't we? Okay.
No, the entry requirements that we require are the ones just stated on our admissions website.
Thank you. We'll get to that. We have another question here from Taya. Would you accept biomedical sciences as a relevant undergraduate degree?
Yes, biomedical sciences is a good degree to come in with. It gives you a good grounding in the foundation sciences and understanding the way the human body works. So yes, this would be a good one.
Next question is from Sophie. Are there any Canadian students in the pre-reg program?
No, we haven't got any Canadian students yet.
We hope to have you, Sophie, yes, on board. You'll be our first, so don't let that put you off, please. Okay, so our next question is from April. How easy would it be for an American to stay in the UK after finishing school to work as an occupational therapist? Is it difficult to get a working visa after study?
I don't have a lot of information about the visa that you would require in order to stay to work. But I do believe a number of our students have stayed for a period of time to continue working within the UK after they finish training before returning to America. So I think you would need to look into the visa requirements from your end.
Okay, our next question is from April. Are there any certain American undergraduate degrees that you prioritize over others when you are looking at accepting an American student?
The kind of degrees we prefer are those, I call them the ologies, so looking at things like biology, psychology, sociology. I am aware that with your undergraduate degrees, often there's quite a broad subject area that's covered. So for example, if you did a BSc in public health, that would cover a wide range of subjects within that. So any subject that relates to healthcare will definitely be an advantage to you.
Excellent. Now we have a question that I think I can actually answer, so I'll show it. This is from Kiara. How many days are, oh no, sorry, this is not one for me. This question for me is, does the university offer campus tours aside from the set days? So this is from Kiana. Just to kind of give a bit more background information, we do have a number of set campus tours that are on our website. These are, of course, on set days. But if you wanted to do something specific, the best thing to do is to email our events team, which arranges this, and they'll get back in touch with you whether it's possible or not. Their email address is openday.booking@brunel.ac.uk. That email address again is openday.booking@brunel.ac.uk. So drop them an email if you need to raise something specific, and they'll get back to you and see if that's possible or not. So we have a question from Kiara. How many days are students on campus, and for how long each day?
As a rule, students need to be on campus from Monday till Friday, and as a rule, lectures would run between 9 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the evening. There are some gaps in the programme, but we do require you to undertake various tasks, and there will be group activities that you'll actually engage in. So where you're not actually timetabled for lectures, you will be expected to be carrying out tasks within that. So it is pretty intensive. As I mentioned, there is a slide that I covered which looked at the programme, and you can see that there's a roughly between 6 to 8 weeks annual leave each year. So there's not a lot of spare time.
Okay, we have a question from Lucy. How many people are in the group task at interview?
This can vary to the number of people who we bring into interview, but just to give you an example, at our last interview day, we had 20 students arrive, so we had 3 groups running the group tasks of roughly 7 students in each group.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I'm just going to see if there's any other questions. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for taking the opportunity, taking the time even, to let us know how you found out about this webinar. A lot of very useful information. If you haven't done so, please be able to do so. We have another question here. This is from Sandra, who says, I don't have a degree in any of the subjects related to this field, but I have been working in mental health for over a year. Would I be eligible for this course?
Well, Sandra, this sounds interesting. We would like to know what your degree is in, because given that you have so much experience working in mental health, this may stand you in good stead to apply for the programme. So I would suggest that you put in an application and contact us, and we would certainly look at your degree and your experiences and to see whether you're suitable.
Okay. We have a question here from Layla. So Layla asks, if we already have a leave booked and it falls during a placement, will this affect the mark for the placement?
You can't actually take annual leave during a placement, so it is a compulsory period of time that you have to attend. If you had to miss a placement due to the fact maybe it was a family circumstance or something beyond your control, then we would actually move your placement to the end of the programme, which means that you possibly might graduate late, but we wouldn't allow you to take annual leave during your placement.
Thank you. The next question is from May. I might be able to actually field some of those questions in regards to accommodation. So May asks, do you have any on-campus housing, or do you help international students with housing near the university? So to answer the first question, yes, we do have plenty of on-campus housing. It's actually one thing Brunel is known for, that we have a lot of accommodation on site, and we actually, accommodation is based where we teach as well, so everything's on one campus. So with a lot of London universities, normally you have accommodation in one area and the teaching facilities in another area. Brunel doesn't have such an issue. We have everything in one place for our students. The second part of May's question is, do you help international students with housing near the university? Yes, be it international or any other nationality. If you don't want to live on the university, or there's no longer any availability on campus, we do have a specialist accommodation department that will work with you to find you accommodation in the local area. We have many partnerships and contacts with the local area, so we do have a team that can support you in finding accommodation. Again, I would recommend the link which was recommended by Dr. Collier earlier, which is brunel.ac.uk/accommodation. That web address again is brunel.ac.uk/accommodation, which has plenty of useful information about getting accommodation while you're at Brunel. So we have one more question, I believe. Okay, we have Jessica from Texas, wants to know the class size of the program. It was covered already, but there's no harm in repeating that. And also, there's a quota for American students or minorities.
Hello, Jessica. No, we don't have a quota at all. It's literally who applies. It just happened that we got about 50% American students, 50% UK students last year, but no, we don't influence what the balance is of the programme. We had 60 students apply last year, so 60 students who were accepted onto the programme last year, so that was the class size, and I think the previous year was a similar size too.
Thank you. Right, just one thing worth noting as well is, who's it that mentioned? April mentioned that she missed the first half of the webinar, but we can say that, you know, we will definitely have a recording of this webinar available, and we will email it out to you in about a week or so. Okay, so our next question. Okay, here we go. This is from Jennifer. I have an international Bachelor of Arts degree majoring in French and geography, but I have nearly 3 years experience of working with people with a wide range of disabilities for Western Care Association. Does this fit your entry criteria?
As long as your degree is at the right level, then we would certainly consider you. Your experience really does stand you in good stead.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. Just seeing if there's any more. Okay, so the sound cut off a little bit there, so we might have to repeat that. So the sound cut on the prerequisites of what it takes to have a degree from the US. Do we need to take anatomy and physiology beforehand?
No, you don't need to do anatomy and physiology beforehand. The prerequisite courses for program, sorry, let me start again. The prerequisite qualifications for our program can be found on our website. So that's the MSc Occupational Therapy pre-registration website. There is a link to the different qualifications from the different countries. So you can click on the country that you're from and it will give you an explanation of which qualifications would be acceptable.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. So we've answered a lot of questions. We're able to take a few more before we conclude today's webinar. So if you do have any questions, do send them through in the next minute, and then we'll see if you can answer them before we finish. Just a couple of housekeeping things worth mentioning again. If you do want to find out further information on this course, please do visit our website and do a search for Occupational Therapy MSc, and you'll find the course page with a lot more interesting detail, including the program specification on this course. We also, I'll just reiterate this as well, if you haven't applied for this course and you'd like to find out more information, you can email us, and the email address to do that is course-inquiries@brunel.ac.uk. The email address again is course-inquiries@brunel.ac.uk. If you have applied for the course and you have any questions you'd like to ask, then you need to email our admissions department, and their email address is admissions@brunel.ac.uk.